All right, I think we are rolling. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great week. So this is a totally new kind of video format that I've never done before, and the whole idea is this is kind of going to feel like a live stream, even though it's not live. However, some live streams might be in the near future, and I'll let you guys know about that. But what I've been noticing is that there have been some really good questions in the comments. And so what I want to start doing, I don't know how often, I don't want to promise anything yet, but as often as I can, I want to make these videos replying to some of the really good questions you all have been asking, especially in this video pertaining to these last two lessons. So we've got these two series going on, the double series and the bass drum technique series. And so both of these I'm really excited about. We got a lot of good stuff coming. And so I want to just address questions from the first doubles video and the first bass drum video, and hopefully help you guys out with this. So, all right, hopefully everything is properly recording here on my computer. These kinds of things always make me a little bit nervous because I've got the GoPro right here that's recording onto the computer, and I've got the audio going through the interface here, and it's all in real time, no editing, and so me making mistakes and missaying things, and we're just gonna go for it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, so also to start off, I just want to say it's so awesome seeing your comments here. There's so many, and something that I've been notoriously bad at, especially over the last couple of years, has been engaging with you on YouTube and keeping up with comments back. Any of you who have been around for a long time, you may remember when the channel was smaller back in like 2017, and I was so proud of myself for replying to every comment. I would make sure I replied to every comment, and it was great. I loved being able to do that early on, but then things grew, and then I launched the website. I started launching courses. I now have a paid membership, and I have one-on-one students. I've been doing group coaching, and so there's a whole nother side to this that not all of you see unless you're on my email list and involved in that. And so I've had to devote so much attention to that I struggle sometimes with still putting the attention that I need to on the YouTube channel, and those of you who are asking really good questions here. And so I'm not able to sit down and type out replies to everything, but what I'm hoping is that this is going to be even more helpful. So we're going to start off here with the doubles video. I think, yeah, we're on the doubles video. So many good comments here. I see you, Ernest Campbell, Jeff Sheff, Brimada, Meadows Films, Dante, Dwayne, X-Men Jade, Brian Napier, Donde is I-22, Mark Kravitz, doing my best to pronounce all these things. Bad Habits 25, Cairo Man 527, Michael Steven, Tim's Garage, Matthew Yauch, Tom, bunch of numbers, Rob Math 01, Rhythmless 1, Timothy, Scanlan 812, Porlock Cameraman, Bilko, Worship, Derek Pendergrass, Dave Green, Greg Jackson, Phyllis Ford, Pablo J, Tom, some numbers, Lord Bacter, 00 Win, the Garage Band Syndicate. Yeah, so many great comments here, and I appreciate all of you guys digging into this and interacting. I think, was this all of them? I think so, making sure I didn't miss any. Don't know if everything is properly loaded here. So what I did, there's a lot of comments, and I can't go through all of them or else we'll be here for hours. But I wrote down some of the biggest questions, some really good questions that are being asked, and we're going to start there. So here we go. We've got six top questions here from the doubles lesson, and then we're going to dive into 6 top questions from the bass drum lesson. So, all right, here we go. First one from Michael Stevens. Michael says, I am just trying to get the drop part down. The stick slides all over the place. The sticks wobble all over the drum. Unless I do a slight drop, the heel of the stick hits my palm. Unless I do a slight drop, the heel of the stick hits my palm or my arm. I have to hold the stick perpendicular to my arm, as if held out in a fist to prevent that. Maybe my snare position is too low since my hands are almost resting on my thighs. Okay, so this is a really common challenge here. Getting my iPad out of the way over here. I'm going to point my camera down toward the snare. You are not alone in this, Michael. I actually had a specific one-on-one student recently who was kind of dealing with the same sort of thing. And it is possible that if your hands are almost resting on your thighs, so you're saying that in order to get sticks wobbling all over the place, and you're having to hold the stick perpendicular to your arm in order to get the rebound. If you're having to, grip with this extreme of an angle, there's definitely something going on there. And the solution could be as simple as how you're sitting and what height you've got your snare. I had a student recently who he was sitting really high, but because he was sitting really high, his snare was low. He didn't bring his snare up according to his height. And so his hands were constantly running into his thighs, and it was causing his hand technique to suffer, and he wasn't getting as much fluidity. And so we then raised up his snare just a little bit, and it made a world of difference. And so it's possible that something like that could be going on, where maybe if you lower your snare a tad bit, I would say lower your stool, but probably don't lower your stool, as we talked about in the bass drum lesson. You want to optimize your throne height for your feet. And so if something doesn't feel right with your snare, maybe just raise it up a little bit and see if you can get a better response there. Yeah, let me think here. So for me, if I have my sticks parallel to the drum head, where I'm almost playing rim shots, my hands are resting on my thighs. So when I'm playing, I'm lifting up just slightly, and that's fine. You can lift up a little bit to avoid the rim shots. You just don't want to be having to lift up extremely high to where it feels awkward. So I think a good height for me is where the rim of the snare is a good inch or two higher than my knee. I've got my heel on the foot plate of my pedal right now, and so this is how much higher. There's some space right here. That's how much higher the snare is than my leg, than my knee right here. But even so, even with the snare being higher than my knees, in this position right here, my hands are hitting my thighs. But if I lift up just a little bit, it's fine. And so I like to lift up just a hair. So I've got about an inch, maybe a little less than an inch of space between, at least this is my Aquarian Super Pad practice pad, a little less than an inch of space between the pad and the shaft of the stick here. So yeah, that's kind of the rough measurement there. And that feels about right to me. So start with that. Start by trying to make those adjustments and see if that helps. And as far as the stick wobble, odds are, and this is something that I'm always teaching my students, sometimes if you've got issues going on with something that's more complex, then take a step back to whatever the more simple thing is and see if the issue still persists there. So if you've got issues with stick wobble going on when you're playing doubles, and when you're doing that loose free bounce, it's possible that that issue is going on just when you're playing singles. And so without worrying about the free bounce, without worrying about the slow doubles, just sit there and play some slow, relaxed singles, just like that, and see if you still have the stick wobble going on there. When going to that free bounce, it is very important that you have a specific fulcrum point, that you've decided where the hinge point's going to be, and you're putting enough pressure on that hinge point that the stick doesn't go crazy. Sometimes if it's wobbling a bunch within your hand and you're losing control, it's because you're letting it rest down here, which could be fine, but if there's not enough pressure on it actually creating a fulcrum, if there's not a real hinge point, it's going to bounce out and it's going to go crazy. So it's possible that's your issue also, where you just want to make sure, even though this is loose and the idea is to be very loose, make sure that you do still have that fulcrum point, which does mean slightly pinching the stick. We're not squeezing, but we want to make sure there's some skin on there on either side. We want to make sure we have this hinge point. That's crucial. Otherwise, you end up losing control and things go crazy. So test that out with your slow singles and see if that doesn't help. All right, another really good comment. Pete the Rock, you had a really good point here. Regarding the weak hand, I volunteer this. I practice neuroplasticity, a psyche term which combines with muscle memory. I try to exercise neuroplasticity. These are big words for me. Neuroplasticity in little steps. Pour and hold coffee cups, brushing teeth, opening doors, etc. And as much as I can do with my weak hand, which is my left. The theory is that this method tricks and adjusts your mind-body connections. So I love what you say here, Pete, because this is basically what we're always getting at when talking about the weak hand. If there's a weak hand, then what you want to do is practice using it more. And so, yeah, drinking from it. So I've got my coffee over here on my left side. So, okay, I should practice what I preach and spend time drinking my coffee from my right hand. I'm left-handed, so technically right hand would be the weak hand. But yeah, brushing teeth, that's a good one. Brushing teeth with the weak hand is hard. It's not too hard to get in the habit of opening doors. That's a really good one. But yeah, as much as you can do with that weak hand. And I think your theory has been tested and proven time and time again that it really does trick and adjust those mind-body connections. It helps so much with that weak hand. And it's amazing to me how some people do have really, really weak hands because they just have not done much with that hand through their life. This is kind of interesting. I was talking with a violin player recently, and she told me that her weak hand is completely incapable. But yet she's a violinist. She can do all this stuff with either hand. I guess it's her bow hand she was talking about. I'm trying to think. Either way, as a violin player, you'd think that both hands would be so well trained, but yet she said that one of her hands was just completely incapable, just can't do anything. I thought, that's crazy. You know, as drummers, we have to get our hands even. And so that does give us some really cool advantages once we've accomplished that, because it helps us be more versatile in the way we move around and the way we carry things and the way we do things in life. And so, yeah, great point, Pete. I appreciate you sharing that. All right, question number 3 from Bad Habits 25. Noticed you used your middle finger fulcrum. On my right hand, which is my weak hand, it seems to be interesting. So you're a fellow lefty. Okay, so right hand, weak hand. It seems to be easier that way, but I've noticed that the majority of drummers that teach this technique use the index finger and thumb. I'm for either way, but I once talked to a teacher about this, and he said you have 5 fingers, so use them. YouTube seems to add confusion sometimes rather than solutions. So I love this honest question. That's why I picked this, because I get that you're kind of frustrated and you've watched a lot of videos on this, and okay, Steven's saying this, and maybe trying to think what Stephen Taylor would say. He's probably middle finger fulcrum. Drumio's saying this, Rob Brown saying this. There's so many great instructors out there on YouTube, and we're all going to have slight disagreements on these things, and that's fine. I want you to find what works for you. The reason why I'm doing middle finger fulcrum is because it opens up more space in my hand. Let me see if I can show this to you well. Also, my apologies for the AC sound you probably hear in the background right now. It's pretty much summertime here in Georgia, so my AC is running down here, so I'm not sweating. When you use your middle finger fulcrum, it gives you more space within your hand, versus if I switch to index finger, see how this space now closes down. We're paying attention to this space here. It gets tighter when I'm using index finger, but it's more open when using middle. And so that's kind of the simple reason why I really like using middle, because it opens up the space more, and then I can just use index as a guiding finger. However, that is not all the time, because the grip we use when we're playing slow and relaxed and when we're doing these rebound doubles is not the same grip we need to be using when we're playing fast doubles. And that's possibly where these discrepancies are happening, because I bet I bet a lot of us teachers are probably on the same page about this, my guess, that when we're playing very slow and relaxed, a middle finger fulcrum can work really well because it just works well for that loose, relaxed kind of playing. But when you go faster, or especially if you're playing from your fingers, yes, you got 5 fingers, or 4 fingers plus a thumb, so use them. Absolutely, because, let's see if I can show you here. If we're playing finger singles, so like this, where we're playing fast singles with the fingers, it would make no sense to use a middle finger fulcrum for that, right? We've got the 4 fingers, let's use them. If I were trying to do that with the middle finger fulcrum, it would just get crazy. The gist of this is, the faster you're playing and the louder you're playing, the more you want to consider bringing the index finger in. And if you're playing from your fingers, you want to then adjust your fulcrum to right here, because we don't need the big wide open space and loose grip when we're playing faster. So when we're doing faster doubles or faster singles, we want to then bring the index finger in and gradually shift that fulcrum from middle finger, so it was right here, to index finger. And so we want to adjust our grip as we play louder and faster. And there is a YouTube lesson here on the channel about that. If I knew the exact title, I would tell you. Maybe you can find it. So that's where the discrepancy might be. So we might use our middle finger fulcrum for one thing, index finger when we're going louder and faster. Hopefully that makes sense. Mark Rabbit's a good question here. Does the index finger merely rest on the stick without doing any work? And this is a great follow-up question to Bad Habits 25. So kind of yes, Mark. Yeah, if we're doing the middle finger fulcrum, the index is kind of just hanging out. It's kind of like, I think of it as a guardrail. It's kind of just there helping keep things stable, because if we take it out of the picture, this feels a little bit out of control if we take it out of the picture, but if we leave it right here, It's almost like something I've referred to before as a double fulcrum. It's not really a double fulcrum because this is the fulcrum, but we've got this extra guardrail here that makes it look as though we have middle finger and index acting as a fulcrum. And I think that's the secret sometimes. Let the index curve around a little bit, and that can help out a lot, even when you're playing very loosely. So sometimes it'll look like the index is here, maybe actively participating, and I guess it is, but not really. It's not truly part of the fulcrum. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, here's a name I'm going to fail at pronouncing, but it's a very cool name. Zay Bruno Eisenberg. I'm going to call you Zay. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Zay asked a good question. The problem I encountered is that the pointer finger keeps rubbing against the stick and also creates a ceiling where the sticks hit when bouncing back. I can't manage to find an angle where the pointer finger is out of the way. All right. So it's possible. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the camera directly above. So this is what it should look like from above here, where the stick is hitting the index finger. The stick's coming back and hitting my index finger, but it's able to go as far as it needs to. And if I wanted to go further, I could actually allow that to happen where it kind of rolls back on that knuckle. So to an extent, yeah, the stick is going to make contact with the index probably, and the index might stop it. And that might be what we want, because we probably don't want the stick to bounce way back to here awkwardly. But if your issue is that index is kind of left out here, okay, that's a problem. If index is out here and it's just awkwardly not really finding its place. So that's where, let me switch hands here. That's where, all right, forgive the flip here. I'm going to see if the GoPro will flip automatically. Yes. You really want the index to look like it's just in line with the other. So instead of floating down like this, because yeah, so this is in the way. That's no good. Instead of that, just let your index line up with the other fingers. So from this side right here, you can't tell where my fulcrum is. It looks as though all the fingers are in line. So hopefully that is your solution. Just let your index gently curve around the stick, just like that, where it's just kind of hanging out right here. But it's not the active fulcrum. It's just a guardrail gently curving, and I think that will solve your problem, because at that point it shouldn't be in the way. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, here goes another flip here. All right, question number 6. This is our final question for the doubles training, and then we're going to jump over to the bass drum. Tom W. With the middle finger as the fulcrum, are you not missing an opportunity to have it involved in the finger catch with the other two? Seems like this might reduce the power for faster doubles. Yes, you're right, Tom. And this, I actually kind of answered this earlier. So as we're going faster, and this is what you're going to find, hopefully I specifically mentioned this. I already filmed the additional videos in the series. Hopefully I didn't forget this. When we get to faster doubles, which is what we're going to cover in the next couple videos in the series, yes, we want to adjust the fulcrum more to index finger, because as we use our fingers, anytime we're using our fingers for anything, this is a good general rule. If we're actively using our fingers for fast playing, whether it's fast, quiet singles or it's doubles, then we need to be using that index finger. Otherwise, it's back to what, let's see, who said it? Back to what, I'm going to find it. Back to what Bad Habits 25 said. What Bad Habits 25 said about you got 5 fingers, so use them. Yes. When we're wanting more power and speed, we need our fulcrum to be up here. Otherwise, we're completely wasting a finger. So absolutely. Right now, and going really slow, we've got to stay really loose and relaxed. And that's why the middle finger fulcrum makes sense. For any kind of slow, relaxed, loose playing, a strictly middle finger fulcrum helps with that. Not everybody agrees, and you can do index finger, but as I showed earlier, you get more space in your hand with middle finger. And then as you increase volume and tempo, that's where you want to shift. You've already got your index curled around, so then shift to making it the fulcrum instead of middle finger. And so you can transition that way. And so I think your question is going to be even better answered as we continue in this series. All right, jumping on to the bass drum questions. Let me pull this one up here. I've got YouTube pulled up over here on my iPad.
If you don't know how to make chords.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, lots of great comments here. Paradise Projects Group, I see you there. Ray Fabry 3759 says, I had no idea you were that tall. Yeah, I'm pretty tall. Let's see, some jumble of letters here. I'm not going to try to read the name. Nick Mutante, Lisa Cool, KJDTM, Claire D, James Burlow, Fatty, John Wires, Bad Boy Drumming, You're a Joke MC, ProSense. Hope y'all are enjoying me trying to read usernames. Mike 3585, T-Rex, Terrell Brown, Ammo 6057, Punk Fungus, Aaron Spicer, Spencer Garner, Fox Fader World, Nick Casale, Mike G, I am RAL3, Hombre Enojado, Dave's 4827, Greg Wanhoff, Kirk H. Miller, Bilko 867, Rich Spicer, Tim Kellaway, OG's Playground, Daza, C. Craig C., Richard Colton, Judy Bennett. I see all of you guys here. So many great comments. Yeah, lots of good questions too. So I had to pick the 6 favorites. So here are the 6 favorite top bass drum questions that hopefully will benefit everybody here as we go through these. I'm going to try to move fast. I know we're 20 minutes into this already, but hey, this is a real-time, unedited video, and if we were live streaming, we'd probably go for like an hour. So that's something that might be in the future. Okay, first question from Lisa Cool. What about shoe size? Doesn't that also matter? I don't remember specifically. I think I might have mentioned in the video I'm a size 11.5, which means as a size 11.5, all right, forgive the camera flip. The lighting's not great down here. Let's see. As an 11.5, that means my heel is on the heel plate. So shoe size is a factor here. You know, if you have really big feet, then that might mean your heel is starting to come off the heel plate. Or if you have huge feet. A buddy of mine's got size 15. Wears size 15 shoes. Crazy. His feet are massive. And so if he were a drummer, he would need one of those extended foot plate pedals. It's actually longer. And so, yeah, I guess what is true across the board, Lisa, is that you want to maintain that 2 to 3 inch space between your toes and the chain. So that's the given. That should always be that way. And then if you have big feet, that might mean your heel is starting to come off the heel plate. If you have smaller feet, that might mean your heel is very much up on the heel plate. If you have really small feet, you might want to play around with actually being more than 2 to 3 inches away from the chain, just so that your heel isn't on the foot plate. Because what you don't want is for your heel to be right here. If your heel is on the foot plate and not the heel plate, there's a problem. But as long as your heel is primarily on the heel plate, then you'll be fine. Hopefully that makes sense and answers your question. Daniel says, my floor toms won't adjust high enough. Either I change the legs or I build some riser for them, or do I actually sit nearer to the drums? I know this question doesn't exactly have to do with bass drum technique, but I thought it was a good one. Because it made me think, so Daniel, something you could try doing is, I don't know what kind of floor tom you have, but a lot of times we have issues making floor toms resonate. What you could do is get some of those isolated foam feet to put on your floor tom legs that will help your floor tom resonate more, which is nice, but also just jack it up higher. You can get those pretty cheap, or you could even rig your own. Or you could take some pieces of foam and or even like a pillow. I did this before actually. One time I was trying to get my floor tom to resonate more, so I literally put it on a pillow where all 3 legs were on the pillow, and it resonated like crazy compared to when it was on a hard floor. So you can get creative and do things like that will help the drum sound better as well as get it higher up. You could change the legs, but I vote riser. And what I mean by riser is just something simple and DIY like that. But definitely look into floor tom like ISO feet that'll help raise it up higher for you. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about how high you're sitting compared to floor tom. Adjust your throne based on how your right foot feels, and then adjust the drums around that. So do whatever you've got to do there with the floor tom to help out. Question number 3, Dad Bod Drumming. Love the username. I'm 6 feet tall and can't find a throne that is high enough. Most just aren't suitable for someone taller than 5'8" or 5'9". Any suggestions on thrones? I haven't run into this issue, or I guess I had a cheap drum stool that came with my first kit when I was in high school, and it did not go high enough, but I didn't realize that, and I think I mentioned here in this lesson, I sat too low for too long as a result. But any decent drum stool you buy that you spend more than $50 on should be able to go high enough. I've got a cheap one that's a backup throne that's actually sitting right over there, where you've got to unscrew it and pull the screw out and then raise it and put the screw back in. That's the cheapest kind there is. I think it was $50, and it will go high enough. It probably won't go any higher than high enough. If I wanted to sit crazy high or play heel up, it might not work, but it works for me being 6'3", 6'4". The one I'm sitting on right now is the DW 9000 Airlift, and it does go crazy high. Generally, the more you spend on your hardware, the higher the hardware will go, which is kind of funny, especially with hi-hat stands, because we generally don't need hi-hats to go crazy high, but the nicer hi-hat stands will, maybe because the bass is sturdier and allows for it. But I guess if you've got a local music store you can go over there and check out the thrones. Surely you will find one that will go high enough, unless you're just having to sit crazy high because you're playing heel up, and so you're talking like bar stool height. If that's you, then you might have to get something a little more expensive. But because also, so this one right here, this DW 9000 Airlift also has 4 legs instead of 3, and they spread super wide. So because they spread super wide, this thing will go super tall. A lot of the less expensive, some of the more cheap thrones, they've got 3 legs and they don't extend very big. And so really they're not going to allow you to go very high because of how much you're going to teeter, and it might literally tip over. So the bigger the bass is, the heavier and sturdier the throne is and the bass is, then the higher they're going to let you go with it. And so, yeah, if you want to go really high, you might have to fork out a little bit more cash for it. But I would think that even a $50 or $100 throne would work. So that's interesting to me that you've had a hard time finding one. But if you're able to go to a local music store and test some out, I'd do that. I'd start with, on the lower end, PDP. Those are great. And then DW, kind of the same thing, but PDP is the cheaper ones, DW is the nicer ones. I love DW hardware. Not an official endorsement, but I really liked my 9000 Airlift throne. It's not cheap, but I used cheaper thrones for years and finally got this one not too long ago. All right, question number 4 from Ammo. Great info, but I noticed your tom is in a stand which allows you to bring it closer than if you were attaching the tom to your kick. Do you recommend using tom stands? So I saw this question and I loved it because this is something that one of the nerdy gear things I'm passionate about. So being as tall as I am, I can't mount a tom off the kick. See how if I did do that, if I mounted the tom off the kick out here, then it would be so much further back. You can see the hole way out there. I'd hardly be able to reach it because I'm having to sit back further. So if you are tall, I highly recommend that you mount your tom on a stand. Now, the pushback with this is often that, well, if you put a rack tom on a basket stand, it's not going to resonate as well. And that's true, but not every basket stand is equal. There's an old video, I say old, a couple years ago here on the channel, where I compared different basket stands with a rack tom in it, and you notice how the more expensive and heavy the basket stand is, the less the tom resonates, the worse it sounds. But the one that I'm using, and I highly recommend this for a rack tom, I know this is probably not very helpful, not that you'll be able to see much of it. This is the DW 6000 series lightweight hardware. And because the stand is lightweight and kind of flimsy, it's still sturdy, don't get me wrong, it's sturdy, but because it's lighter weight, it's got some flex to it, which allows the tom to resonate really well. And so when I hit this tom, it rings just as if it were shock mounted off the kick drum, and I can place it wherever I want it. So I highly recommend one of those DW 6000 lightweight basket, well, not really, it's not actually a basket stand. You fold the arms out, but you get the idea. Get one of those, that works really well because I hate mounting toms off cymbal stands. I can't mount toms off of kick drums because I'm too tall. So that's my solution, and I love it. That way I can place things exactly where I want to. So yes, definitely recommend it. Mike G makes an interesting point, and so I wanted to share this. Thanks, Steven. Your ratio doesn't suit my short pins, but I moved closer to it. I've also noticed my spine and hips are much happier on a quality chair that tapers. Round flat seats restrict that descending leg angle mentioned in the vid. They sort of encourage a right angle. So this is a really interesting point. That's why I wanted to share it. So thanks for sharing this, Mike G. I know what you're talking about. I am a fan of round thrones, and it might just be me being a super skinny guy, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's round or bicycle seat. But I was actually thinking about this recently because at my church on the kit there, I'm using a bicycle seat throne. And I was thinking about that, how on the bicycle seat throne, it does support a sharper angle of descent with my legs, where if I sat really high, my legs could descend right off and it would work right. I wouldn't feel constricted. Versus with a round throne, I see what you mean. It kind of feels like there's more of that constriction, like it's eating into your backside as your legs are trying to descend if you're sitting higher. So what I've always done though, and maybe this is my workaround, or maybe this is why I like round stools better, I sit on the front edge of them. So, okay, for what it's worth, let's see. I don't know how much you're gonna be able to see here. This is where I'm sitting on this. So you can see how I'm sitting on the front 2/3. Most of my weight is on the front half of the throne. And so I'm not even coming close to my backrest. Like if I lean back, this is not playing position for me for sure. And so I'm sitting kind of on the front edge. It feels like the front edge, but really it's the front half, front 2/3, as opposed to if I were sitting back here, okay, now I'm definitely experiencing that leg restriction you're talking about. So I think that's why round seats have always worked for me, because I like to sit on the front edge. And that's just what I've gotten used to. And bicycle seats, if I sit on the front edge, it actually feels weird. I have to sit further back on them. So totally up to you, totally a personal preference thing. But yeah, I just wanted to address that because you bring up a great point there. I think a lot of people might relate to you. All right, our sixth and final question here on the bass drum lesson. Second and One says, I've seen several bass drum technique videos along with bass drum pedal videos. I'm around your height, and so I can identify with some of the issues you speak of. I'm also a bit older and suffer with back problems. As for the distance, I found one that works for me. The problem I'm now having is reaching my mounted tom. I'm considering changing the way I mount the tom. Any thoughts? And in case you watched this Second and One, I wanted to answer your question, even though I kind of answered it. Let's see, that was Ammo's question about the tom. Yeah, just because you've got to sit further back, don't let your toms dictate how you sit. Sit based on your kick drum, get your feet comfortable, then adjust your snare, and then adjust your toms around that. So do whatever you got to do with the tom. And I definitely recommend get rid of the kick drum mount. You can mount your tom off a cymbal stand if you want to, but I highly recommend the basket stand. Get the DW6000 lightweight stand. That'll work really well for helping it to resonate, and then you can position it wherever you want it. But that's a common question, common struggle with us tall people, where once we sit back far enough, it's like, wait, now everything's too hard to reach. So when you're adjusting how far back you sit, you could also just slide the kick drum away. That's another idea. And so when you've got the rack tom independent of the kick drum, you can do that. But you want to make sure that everything's close enough to you. You want to have space for your legs, but make sure you're not having to lean into things. That's a common thing that I've had to deal with, making sure, can I actually reach this well? Even though the kick drum's way out here, I need to make sure everything's close to me. And so that's good to pay attention to. And that definitely helps with the back issues too. I know I'm going on 30, and so I can't really speak too much to the getting older and the back issues, but I know if I'm having to hunch and lean a lot, then that's definitely not going to help my back any. So the more you can stay, sitting up straight, have everything close within reach, but plenty of space for your right leg, kick drum far enough away, you're going to be good. So do whatever you got to do there to get that rack tom closer. All right. This has been fun. Any of you who have stuck with me for this last 33 minutes, thanks so much. I hope this has been valuable to you, helpful to you. I hope this has been more valuable than me trying to type out answers to comments, because I've struggled with that. Like I said, I haven't been able to keep up with that over the last few years. But if I can show you answers and maybe just pick some top comments, then I hope this is super helpful. So up next in the double series, we've got the wrist cheat that creates strong, even doubles. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then up next in the bass drum series, because we're just staggering these every other week, we've got the controversial technique for a smoother bass drum. And we'll plan on doing these comment reply videos maybe once a month. I'd like to get into a rhythm of doing that, especially when a lot of folks are watching the videos and the lessons are helpful and there's really good questions. And so this is definitely something that we'll do again, as well as maybe a live stream. A live stream is definitely in the future. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So I'll keep you posted on that. make sure you are on my email list. Many of you who are my loyal weekly viewers, you are on my email list already. If you are not, go download my free e-guide, especially the 30 days to 4-way rock coordination guide. That one is one of the favorites right now. If you're having trouble executing the ideas you hear in your head and things just feel difficult on the drums, like you feel like your head's about to explode, you're running out of mental bandwidth, that just means you need 4-way coordination. And it's not rocket science, it's a skill that you can accomplish, you can master it. So grab my totally free PDF e-guide, 30 days to 4-way rock coordination. That'll also get you on my email list so I can send you some more good stuff and helpful lessons. And that'll make sure you're in the know about whatever is going on, like a live stream in the near future. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed doing this, and we'll definitely do this again. As always, stay non-glamorous. I'll see you on the next lesson. You can do this.